Hey everybody, it's Althamir. So it took me a long time to react to this because, well, honestly, I wasn't really sure how to feel about it. Um, on one side, I am happy that they are getting away from chapters because they felt predictable, right? It was getting a little dull, and the reduction of content while in 2023 it worked. This year it really didn't. The Q3 bug fix was kind of a joke. Also wasn't even a housing update. It was more of a Infinite Archive update. Um, on the other side, I'm not really sure what the new direction entails, and that makes me a little nervous, because like I said, the chapters were predictable and a little dull, but I kind of felt like that they covered everybody. I mean, everybody got something. Within that year, Q1 was for people who like dungeons. You even got people who like harder content, could do the hard mode version of those dungeons. They also got a new trial. They have wandering world bosses, along with ZOS was already amping up the difficulty in public dungeon bosses, along with regular world bosses. So that could have been something that difficult people looking for difficult content could do, and people who liked regular overlay could have that. And it kind of felt like it was something for everybody. But anyway, let's just get into this here. I don't want to spend because I'm going to be reading this. Obviously, this might be a little longer video, so I'll try to make sure to put timestamps in there. I'll be doing it by these chapter names here. So let's go. Welcome to everyone in the Elder Scrolls Online community. As the year is drawing to a close, I'm going to take some time to walk you through my thoughts on 2024 and look ahead to 2025 and how ESO will be evolving to meet the changing needs of the community. First, a few notes about 2024. I probably say this every year, and I've read this, and he does. But 2024's ESO content was among my favorite. I love the vibe and the story of Gold Road. And now that home tours is allowing me to see so many other people's homes, I'm seriously considering making Maryvine Estate my main house. Although it will take a lot to unseat me from Mornoth Keep, 2024 showed me that we are still creating wonderful content for all of our players. We ended the year with two new companions. I am currently adventuring with Zarethvar, although I am early in the journey with him as well. Some fun tweaks to Battlegrounds. Yeah, fun. I look forward to 2024's content and updates and am very satisfied with our story, content, and system updates. It was wonderful to spend time with fans in person in April at our Amsterdam 10-year anniversary event. And for our team members, sadly, I could not make it to attend the Germany ESO Tavern in July. We had many other small regional community events, some for the first time in their territory, sprinkled throughout the year, where fans of the game got to meet one another and share stories about their shared time in Tamriel. And now it's time to look forward, which will comprise most of this end of the year message. Change is a constant, especially in gaming. The gaming industry changes, player habits change, other games come and go. In fact, change has been the constant since ESO launched in 2014. We have been able to keep up with the times and make some hard decisions of big changes when it was time to make them. Looking back on all the changes that has gotten us here, it is pretty clear that we have generally made the right decision at the right times for our game. And now we are looking forward to 2025 and how we can change ESO to keep it relevant, awesome, and compelling. Since 2017, we have released amazing content and systems every year, but always on the same schedule. This annual cadence pushed the team to focus on short deadlines every June, where all types of content, systems, content, zones, etc., had to be completed at the same time and has not left us much time for experimentation or thinking about doing things differently. At the end of last year, we gave a slight heads up that we would that we would be shaking things up. Our lead times are so long that we were already planning for some of these changes back then. And I'm very happy to say that starting in 2025, you'll see new ideas and ways of launching content starting rolling out. Now, just a quick comment. I didn't want to comment on the intro part, but if they were already planning this last year, why did they even make a 2020 an in-person event? That just seems really dumb on their part. Anyway, turning the page on chapters. We have been incredibly successful with our strong annual chapter releases, starting with Morrowind in 2017 up through Gold Road just 6 months ago. Zone design and quest/content is at the core of every Elder Scrolls game, as our annual chapter release model highlighted. We will still do lots of story content, but now, looking into 2025, we need to concentrate on different types of content to support all types of ESO players. We are putting chapters aside and will be focusing on new types of content and a new release philosophy. More on that below. As 2025 will be a transition year for new content, we are going to have new zone-based content launch in 2025. But you'll have to wait until April to hear the specifics about how it is different. Stay tuned. So this is a transition year, which worries me. Again, I'm basically very cautiously optimistic about this. Probably a little bit more cautious. The bug fix performance cadence change in 2033 was a big hit, just like this one was. If you go to people's reaction to this, people are excited, but they were also excited in 2023, which did live up to the hype. But after 1 year, it just wasn't there. In 2020, so it's like, okay, 2025 will be a transition year. So there's a lot of evidence piling up in my brain that this wasn't planned. They say it was planned, but then they planned for the 2025 in-person event in Washington D.C. And they say that this is a transition year, which means they didn't map out what they wanted to do with these changes yet. And I'll even get to where there's further evidence of this. So now we look at the end of chapters in this transition year. They say we'll have zone-based content, but we have to wait until April? I think that's a wrong move. Now, usually what ZOS and people in that ZeniMax Media, even Bethesda, what they do is they drop little sprinkles, the little tidbits, so they be vague, so hype up expectations, get questions rolling, and people interested. But in this case, I think it's a bad idea. I really do, because now we don't know what seasons are. First of all, calling it seasons is a bad idea. I'll get into that later, but it's. I think it's good chapters had to go. If I remember last year, Rich said that one of the reasons why they wanted to change their content cadence and agreed with the player base in terms of having less content to focus on bugs was because the team was feeling pressure, and this relieved pressure. I'm like, all right, well, cool. I didn't think that changing chapters would be this, though. I don't know. Anyway, on to the next part. Introducing seasons. Over the course of 2025, we will be moving more towards a seasonal content model and away from launching massive content updates once a year, as we did with chapters. We will be talking more about this in the future, but in 2025, expect to see named seasons of 3 or 6 month durations with a mix of themed story content, events, story items, dungeons, and more. 2025 will be a mix of old and new as we move the dev team towards smaller bite-sized content. We will still have larger items that we've been working on for over a year, which you'll see as well. Because, I mean, they have said in interviews a few times that they plan things out 3 to 5 years in advance. So at one time, this was a chapter year. 2025 was going to be a chapter year. So they already had it planned out. So anyway, freeing up the dev team from needing to adhere to a strict annual cycle means we'll be able to have teams launch content when it is ready throughout the year and not to a work date in June. This will let us focus on a greater variety of content spread over the year. This supports the new seasonal model and will enable us to release content updates, fixes, and systems in a more efficient manner. Now, first off, like I said, the name isn't the greatest name. There's a lot of other things out there that call things seasons, and it doesn't go well. Although I think they do that in Fallout 76, and I think it actually seems to be going okay. I don't play that game, but from what I've heard, but seasons doesn't have a good reputation. I also feel like it's a move away from chapter. Like I mentioned, it's a good move, but there's just too many questions, and that's bad, considering how badly 2024 went. But if it prevented them from working on experimenting with things and prevented them from even trying to fix Cyrodiil, okay, then maybe this was a good move. But chapters had something for everybody. They were dull and predictable, but I didn't. I think that I thought that they would just adjust it in terms of keeping chapters, but Q1, 3, and 4 would change again. That's how I felt like it was going to happen. There's just too many questions I have about this to be hyped up about anything. Now, we don't know how it works behind the scenes. So if this new style means better stories, deeper characters, better backstories, and cool things, then, it'll work. Maybe there'll be more content, like maybe a season will have more than just 2 dungeons. Maybe we'll have 4. Maybe a season won't be just 2 dungeons like a quarter 1 DLC will be. Maybe it will be dungeons plus maybe they'll add something to a zone, and I mean, it could be so many things. If you remember during the hype for update 44 live broadcast, the new BGs apparently took 2 years to make, which troubles me because they didn't come out very well. But so I mean, I don't know. I mean, if they had more time to focus on it, would it have been a better product? There's just, again, too many questions of what the seasons mean. I'm not liking it so far. I will say, I mean, at least I don't have 5,000 different thoughts about it. I only have like 2. All right, let's get to the next section here. We have been a new focus on change and experimentation. We have been hearing from you, the community, that we need to experiment more, to shake things up and not be so predictable. The game needs new and different types of content, and for long-standing feedback to be addressed. We have already started on some ideas that will be tested in 2025. These systems and ideas will be clearly marked as experiments in patch notes and are ideas that may or may not be fleshed out into full game systems. With our new focus on breaking up content into seasons and away from years, it gives us time to do these experiments and changes. Here are some ideas that we are working on, and some of which you may see on live servers as tests in 2025 and beyond. Some of these will be tests, and some of these will be improvements based on player feedback. All right. First one. We need to seriously address Cyrodiil performance. No shit. Our ambitious goal is to return it to the concurrency levels we supported in 2014. We'll be experimenting with a Cyrodiil campaign where all classes will have PvP, Pacific, and performance skills that replace the standard player skills with the expectations that we can support more players per campaign. Okay, I mean, this is exciting if it works. Yes, Cyrodiil needs to be fixed. It is beyond insane that it's gone on for so long, and honestly, kind of unacceptable. However, all classes get PvP, Pacific, and performance skills, and replace standard ones. So this is an experimental campaign is going to have all new skills for every single class. Or is it just some of them being replaced? Like, okay, they look at like Dragon Knight, for instance, and they go, okay, well, Dragon Leap for some reason usually leads to more crashes because of the stun that throws you in the air and the calculations, blah 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 blah. So they replace Dragon Leap, or does all the skills get replaced? I mean, that again, this is something where vagueness probably didn't really work out for them. I mean, that's also a lot of skills. So, what does that leave in terms of memory, for other things in the future? Because while they did free up memory to introduce Arcanist and introduce scribing, they still put on old consoles, which I've said in previous videos does not help them. And they have even said holds them back. So, is introducing 15 new skills or whatever it is per class, is that going to take up whatever memory we have left? I don't know. I mean, it will be an interesting experiment. Now, this could be great too. We have been asking for years, PvPers like me and PvEers, separate the two. Well, maybe this is the way to do that. You know, I don't know. I'm curious, and I'll, if I have time to PvP and help out, I will participate in this experiment. But we'll have to see how it works. I don't mind the experiments, but why do they have to dump chapter? I don't know. Whatever. I'm just so focused on that. All right. So next one is increasing the difficulty of standard overworld combat. um, this worries me. Maybe it's a little like, I want to say PTSD because I don't mean that, but like bad memories. When the game first came out, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but when the game first came out, they had something, that was called veteran zones. For those who don't know, veteran zones was basically Cadwell Silver and Cadwell Gold, and everything was alliance locked. So I was AD at the time, so I couldn't be with EP friends because they had different zones. They have a different zone lineup because everything was leveled and instanced, and even if I had entered an area where they finished a quest but I didn't, they'd be, my friend would be invisible to me if they were AD or whatever. It just wasn't a great system. And then what they did was they did what I called forced group content. And they increased the difficulty in veteran zones so that you needed multiple people, just like how Craglorn was back then. Craglorn back then was a lot more difficult, split up into Northern Craglorn and Southern Craglorn, and you needed not only to be at the same moment in a quest for a friend to help you, you needed their help, because even a quest boss was probably similar to a world boss, how world bosses are now. And it was just insanely difficult, and no one did it. I'm not even kidding you. The only reason why anybody was in Craglorn back then or Veteran Zones was to power level to the next VR level. I I have nightmares about running around Craglorn in Spellscar or whatever it was, and with my friend getting to VR 14. It's it, and Adventure Zones failed. It's the reason why we have what we have now. Adventure zones didn't work. They just didn't. I mean, the game how it was made back in 2014 literally didn't work, to the point where the game almost failed, and it was one person, I don't remember their name, who believed in the game, who gave them the chance to switch to what came out to be as one-time real chapters. I don't know. I mean, that to me is like seeking business advice from Sears. It's just not very smart. I think that the I think the players that are looking for this content should get it, but I'm a little worried about what ZOS is gonna do. There's a lot of different things you can do, like having, because there's multiple, whether you know it or not, there are multiple instances of every zone. There's not just one Ordon, there's probably three or four. You take one of those instances and make it a hard mode zone. I don't think that's a bad idea. But, I don't know. I'm really worried about how this is going to be implemented. You don't want to isolate, you don't want to alienate anybody, including the people who like casual content. Okay. Next one is improving the overall feel of combat with animation effects and potential audio work. There's really not much here, honestly. I mean, we'll have to see how it comes out. Next one is experimenting with more zones like Craglorn, although not as large in area or scope. Created exclusively for high-end group and soft group content with associated gear chase. So basically, smaller adventure zones. So they're bringing back adventure zones, but they won't be. Maybe they'll be different. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see how it comes out and how they do it. It worries me a little bit. I think that's why we had Bastion and Mix the way that the way that they worked in Necrom. It was a test to see how we reacted. But I don't know. I'm a little worried. Next one is adding and refining tools to make guild recruitment, interaction, and management easier and more logical. Again, cool, but doesn't really affect me too much. If anybody who runs a guild, I've ran a guild before in the past. It's not easy, but if it makes things easier for them, then hey, bring it on. That's cool. All right. Last one is we have many more ideas, and of course, we'll blah blah blah. Okay. So those aren't bad. Um, you know, um, those aren't really that bad. I don't know. So here we go. Concentrating on new and returning user experience. It is long past time that we address ESO's new and returning user experience. This game is so large at this point that we need to refine the new user experience. Our goal is to shield new players from being overwhelmed by dozens of content options presented to them on entering the world, and instead give them the essential guidance they need to enjoy the game before opening it up to all possibilities. Additionally, we have made millions of players who return to the game every year after taking months to years off, and it is often confusing to them what they should be doing, which is very true. I have some friends that come back every now and again, and it's like I feel like I have to sit there for like hours explaining all the differences and what's changed, and yeah, it can be a lot to take in. If you just want to sit down and just play the game and have fun, you can't really do that anymore. We need to address this by making sure the game's map and other quest informational UI areas clearly show the user where they left off when they left. What's been added since then, and where they will find content that they love. Here are just a few of the items planned to improve the new and returning user experience. There's a new patcher with improved visuals and performance for PC only. Kind of makes sense. Returning to the original Wailing Prison tutorial for all new players. This is something that should have always been a thing. How I feel they should have done it from the start. Wailing Prison should have always been the new player tutorial. And when you entered, let's say, elsewhere, you entered a quote unquote like introductory quest, which would have been the elsewhere tutorial, and that way we don't lose those areas. The one that I've said many times that really makes me kind of angry that disappeared was the tutorial for Greymoor, because that was a Deepwood readout for Skyrim lovers. It had Hag's End. It was a giant Nordic tomb, and it was a lot of fun. And I really actually liked that tutorial. It was a giant area. I hope they reuse it for something, because now it's just lost assets and it's just sitting there not doing anything. They never should have changed the new to the tutorial system they had. It was dumb. They are visually improving base game zones with updated textures and art assets. Starting with the starter islands, these should roll out in March 2025. Starter islands are Canarthy's Roost, Bleak Rock Island, Strauss Mackay, and there's two more. One for DC, one for EP. I don't remember right now, but it's an Argonian one and a Orc one. Betnik Island. Yes, that's kind of exciting. I'd love to see what they do here. I felt like the older zones are just so visibly older. So I'd really love to see what they do with that. That'd be really cool. Please change each March. It bothers me to my core and down to my bones. If you know, you know. Not showing new players prologue quest or chapter quest compass pins. The jury is still out on whatever. Okay, I don't really have too many feelings on that. Sprucing up the game's PC UI, which is long overdue for a modern visual upgrade. Yes, it is. Other map and UI systems still design idea stage to make returning thing. So that's cool. You know, next section. I don't really have much to say beyond what I did. Honestly, continuing to tell great stories. With the changes to our content release model, please be assured that we are not abandoning new Quest content, but we will do it in different ways than we previously have, as our focus will be on adding giant new land masses, or not be on that, sorry. Although we will do that from time to time, so people who like me and some others who like, giant, what they've done with chapters, not necessarily going away. It depends what the season entails, I guess. Instead, we will use existing zones and areas to tell new stories. Some of these are continuing to tell stories in existing zones and storylines and bringing back familiar characters. All right, that's kind of cool. If it means expanding on zones that are lacking, I think that'd be kind of cool. For instance, I'll just read the next one so I can say. New stories focus on Hallmark Elder Scrolls organizations like Dark Brotherhood, Thieves Guild, Fighters Guild, and Mages Guild. Now, if that means, you know, adding things like more dungeons to Abba's Landing or Gold Coast, I think that'd be really great. Making it so Gold Coast maybe has a public dungeon, or they have come some more dungeons. Maybe they have some world events or wandering world bosses. I think that'd be really neat to do that. Like especially like so even Vardenfell. I think that'd be cool. Splitting a large zone across multiple updates. Now they did this before. For those who don't know, because Craglorn originally was actually split into two separate zones. So let's say something like what I'm hopeful is Winterhold. So they would split into like Northern Winterhold, maybe Southern Winterhold, or maybe even Northern Winterhold and Central Winterhold and Southern. Whatever. So that's not bad. That's not really that bad at all. Um, we'll have to see how they do it though. It could go poorly, like the housing update. Housing update wasn't even a housing update. We are embarking on these changes to give the development team the space to find a new cadence that can mix new content and systems with addressing feedback, fixing issues, and adding new quests and activities to existing stuff. So this right here has me worried because we don't even know how seasons are gonna work, and apparently they don't either. That's not good because that's what this tells me. A new cadence. So seasons might even just be temporary. I mean, who knows? But that's why I feel like this was so sudden, because the next section too, um, I'll I'll finish, but that has me really worried that the development team giving the space to development team to find a new cadence means they don't know what after 2025 what the seasons are going to be, or if they're even going to be seasons. That I don't know. It will not be as regular as the old cadence, so expect season launches and new content system and test announcements throughout the year, not necessarily in January, which means no global reveal in January. Sorry. I guess they're not doing that anymore. We might get a trailer for the dungeons. I'll get into that later. But yeah, I don't know. Speaking of, to give everyone a heads up, our next big announcement event will be in April 2025 as we introduce our first season. There will be much more in April in the announcement, but for that, we will have to wait. That's a dumb decision. We will still have content update in March 2025, and we'll give you more information about that sometime early in the year. So we're not getting what we usually get. We're just going to be getting probably, oh yeah, like, random dungeon trailer, which I don't do dungeons, so I don't care. You have already heard the news that we will not be doing a 2025 North American community event as we originally planned. This was a difficult decision, but as shown by all the planning and development changes listed here, which this just says it's last minute, we need to focus on the game itself for a while this year. That said, whatever. Again, this tells me that all this was last minute. They didn't, he says that they were planning on doing this. They said that they dropped breadcrumbs. And yet they still told us that they were going to have a 2025 in-person event, knowing that all these big changes were coming. That's a dumb business move. These guys aren't dumb, as much as we all would love to say that they are. I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know how I feel about this letter. Part of me is happy that things are changing, but I can't be that happy. I'm like 5% happy and not like 95% like curious, and not a good curious. You know, I don't know. I mean, ultimately, what I'm afraid of is ESO getting lost in players' minds. I feel like since chapters come out, people like me, anyway. I have like a counter in your head, and you have some marks like, oh, I expect ESO to have content in XYZ, so I'll go back then. But now they're not going to have that, and I think it's really easy to get lost. Especially with all the great games that are going to be coming out. So, you know, you want, from a business standpoint, you want to make major adjustments, but still keep the crowd coming in. And are people going to forget if they don't know? Especially right now. I mean, even for me right now, I'm like, I have no idea if these seasons this next year are going to be going to appeal to me. Is the 3-month season going to be dungeons, and the 6-month season going to be a small adventure zone? Like, that doesn't appeal to me. So without knowing, it's just insane, and I think it's a bad move. And if the seasons were the reason why the in-person event was canceled, why even make that announcement? Why not just put an asterisk and say, we will see if we can do another in-person event next year? You know, and even in that letter where they announced the cancellation, and then the worst move that they ever do is not tell anybody why, like, at all, and then start warning people on the forums and getting in and suspending and banning, all because they started to say, oh, you're spreading misinformation, you're spreading conspiracy theories. You didn't tell us why you canceled the event. Just tell us and we won't. It's a pretty simple freaking solution here, especially if this especially if the reason is just because they changed the cadence. It doesn't take a genius to say, okay, well, then you put something at the bottom of the letter saying, if you're curious why, stay tuned to Matt Firor's letter later this year. And then people wouldn't have speculated so hard. They just would have waited for a couple of weeks. They're making some bad business moves when I didn't think they were that dumb. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you guys think about the seasons. I'm not that hyped about them. You know, I don't, I can't be really, But anyway, let's get a little further into some of the questions that have been already in everyone else's minds. That Zoss has addressed some of these, and I just want to, I picked up a few dev comments here. This one is from Jessica Folsom. Thank you for all the great questions so far, everyone. We are keeping a list to help inform what we need to answer and explain more later, and we will. One thing we do want to clarify today are the questions about seasonal content. Our plans are not to remove content such as quests, stories, and new areas like some other games do when a season is over. So when a season's over, you'll still be able to go through the content. But I think what won't be available is like they'll have special things available. Like, well, this in season you can get XYZ, kind of like what the Golden Pursuits are, kind of thing in a way. So you'll be able to go and do the content, but you just won't get that extra stuff. Which is, I mean, it's good for us to know, right? Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to go back to that one. So someone was curious about what Q1 will even be. They said, just following up on this, we have new content coming in 2025. We will have our normal Q1 content for 2025. In April, we'll have more details on the rest. So they're still having dungeons in 2025, which is really great. And then they did talk about increasing communication. That was something that they said that they wanted to focus on. So let's see. Oh, people were talking about maintenance mode. And they addressed that too, just to follow up here. The changes here are to make us more agile and produce more engaging and varied content. So from our perspective, it is not going into maintenance mode, but rather being able to address several concerns the player base has noted over the years. So the way that they're looking at it is they can do more content. Instead of dungeon chapter, dungeon story, they can do more things through the year. All right, so this here is talking about communication, something that they've wanted to work on for a long time. So they set up this as a follow-up to this comment, and as we continue planning for next year and beyond, we wanted to ask you for your input on specific topics, blah, blah, blah. For edit AMAs, do you prefer when they are focused on specific topics and or teams? See, I really love that they're looking for answers for this. Player satisfaction surveys. I mean, this is great. They need more of this. Just tiny things will go so far. So far, honestly. And you increase the communication even by a little. Like, I mean, how many of us love Kevin? For real. I mean, the guy was the best hire ever. Let's see. I apparently didn't hit the right comment on that one. Okay. This one was about PvP Battlegrounds. So we're planning to have more conversations about this feedback and associate question once everyone is back in office for the new year. We appreciate everyone's feedback so far and should make for a good starting point addressing your concerns. So they're apparently looking into it. When it comes to update 44 and how badly it went, and they're communicating. They're trying, and then they even have a holiday communications, that they're going on holiday. They wanted to let everyone know they're going on holidays. They won't be back until 2025. So they're trying, but as for the letter, I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Are you excited? Are you not excited? Me, as you can see by the channel, I'm already playing other games like Enshrouded and stuff like that. I just, I can't, I'm not, I want to play fun games. I can't just wait for ESO to be fun. I can't. If I don't have chapters to look forward to, then I'll just play something else. I mean, it's might not be a great direction. It might be a massive step sideways or backwards because chapters were a proven model that worked. It saved their ass. Bottom line. So while ZeniMax and the devs were definitely brave for taking this step, we'll have to see how it works out. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's maintenance mode. I think that's a little weird. I wouldn't say it's a sinking ship, but if this doesn't go well, the iceberg might be it might be there. You know. So I am excited to see what they do here though about old zones and the organizations like World Dark Brothers and Thieves Guild finally get active abilities. That'd be kind of cool. So I'd love to see what they do there. That would be fantastic. And dump old consoles for the love of God. Seriously, they're killing you. But anyway, thank you for waiting so long for this video. Really sorry, but I didn't want to lead you on 40 different directions, so that doesn't seem fair to you guys. I will applaud them for increasing the communication when they had that giant data center thing. They kept us updated every step of the way. Like it was really fantastic. You know, so keep it up. Anyway, that's it for me for this video, everybody. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.